Indian Chandrayaan suddenly starts giving some strange signals after so many years. The ISRO, or Indian Space Research Organization's Chandrayaan mission, is perhaps India's most ambitious space mission ever. The objective of the second Chandrayaan mission was to make some amazing discoveries on Earth's natural satellite and nearest neighbor. Unfortunately, the mission was a disaster even before it started. So, what went wrong, and is the Chandrayaan mission active today? Let's find out. Before we start with the video, however, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell for the latest notifications. With that said, let's dig right in. The Chandrayaan missions were the first step taken by India's government-owned space organizations called the ISRO to conduct research in space. Planning a ladder on the moon was an objective to later conduct deep space missions. The Chandrayaan-2 missions selected the lunar South Pole as the area for investigation. You see, the lunar South Pole is so interesting because of the much larger surface area that remains in shadow than that of the North Pole. There was a higher possibility of finding water in the permanently shadowed areas around it. Chandrayaan-2 mission was the successor of its parent missions Chandrayaan and consisted of an orbiter, lander, and rover with the goal of exploring the South Pole of the moon. The mission is aimed at studying not just one area of the moon, but all the areas combining the exosphere, the surface as well as the subsurface of the moon in a single mission. It was launched on GSLV Mark III, India's most powerful launcher to date, on July 22, 2019, and reached the lunar orbit on August 20. The lander and rover were set to land on the far side of the moon on September 6 after being separated from the orbiter. However, the missions did not go as planned when the combinations crash-landed on the surface of the moon. While the lander and rover were lost in the accident, it was not completely a failure as the orbiter continues operating in the lunar orbit to date, providing key observations on the surface. ISRO released a wealth of new information that has been gathered by the scientific payloads to date, which has further added to the understanding about the moon, sun, and the mysteries of their environment. Water on moon. In case you are wondering, ISRO Chandrayaan-1, the precursor to Chandrayaan-2, already acknowledged the presence of water on the moon back in 2008. But the instrument on board the first missions to the moon was not sensitive enough to detect the difference between hydroxyl radical and the water molecule H2O, which also an OH. Chandrayaan-2 had a far more sensitive instrument named Imaging Infrared Spectrometer on board, which detected OH and H2O molecules separately and further found unique characteristics about both. In a path-breaking discovery, IIRS made the most precise observations about the presence of water molecules on the lunar surface to date. Earlier, water was known to be present mainly in the polar regions of the moon. But Chandrayaan-2 unravels the mystery of water by finding signatures at all latitudes on the surface of the moon. Besides, in a first-of-its-kind discovery, a microwave imaging instrument, the dual-frequency synthetic aperture radar, has detected potential water ice at the permanently shadowed regions in lunar poles. Presence of precious elements. Thanks to a better detector, apart from major elements like magnesium, aluminum, silicon, calcium, titanium, iron, etc., the Chandra's large areas of X-ray spectrometer examined and detected minor elements, chromium and manganese, for the first time on the lunar surface. How would the discovery of elements help? Well, the findings paved the path for adding knowledge about the magmatic evolutions of the moon, its nebular conditions, and much more. Study of the sun. Besides gathering information about the lunar surface, one of the scientific payloads has collected information about solar flares, called Solar X-ray Monitor, has witnessed a huge amount of microflares outside the active regions of the sun for the first time. ISRO believes that this discovery will lead to a better understanding of the mechanism behind the heating of the solar corona, which has been the center of attractions and problem for many decades. Presence of noble cases. Chandrayaan-2 has also found new developments happening under the surface of the moon. Chandra's Atmospheric Compositions Explorer-2 instrument on board Chandrayaan-2 has found argon-40 in the tenuous lunar exosphere. The new observations provide insight into the dynamics of the lunar exospheric species and activities in the first few tenths of meters below the lunar surface that could pave the way for understanding the compositions of the lunar surface. The observations show the perseverance of argon in the equatorial and mid-latitude regions of the moon. While it's not the first time that argon-40 has been detected on the moon, so far these detections had been limited to near-equatorial regions as seen by the Apollo 17 mission. The explorations of the moon and to the lunar surface is not limited to today. Scientists are in a quest to better understand the lunar surface to pave the path for future moon missions. Hence, the information gathered from the orbiter built upon the existing database about the moon. These findings will help us later establish a base on the moon, which NASA has been researching for decades. Well, that's all for this video. Hope you enjoyed watching this one. Thank you for watching.